What's up everyone? Welcome to Weeb Psycho TV. I know it's been a while since I released my last video. Sorry about that. Don't worry though, I haven't been slacking on my reading. I've never stopped reading web novels. I even had a chance to read some of the web novels you guys suggested. Thank you once again for the suggestions. Before I start this video, I want to give all my subscribers a huge thank you. I appreciate you guys so much. You guys helped me reach my goal of 500 subscribers before the year 2020 ended. You guys are the best. Thank you all for all the support. We did it. By the way, I made a Twitter and Instagram so you guys can follow me on there too. Before we get started with the video, go take a moment to smash the like button and subscribe. Our next goal is trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So if you enjoyed this video, go share it with your friends. Now, let's get this video started. If you're new to my channel or a returning subscriber, welcome to Weeb Psycho TV, where we explore the world of web novels together. Before we start this list, I want to say that this is my opinion and not an absolute truth. If you disagree with my list, please tell me your top 10 list. I would love to see what you guys are reading. Anyways, let's get started. Starting our countdown off with number 10 is the web novel My Vampire System by JKS Manga. I know I've talked about this web novel before in a previous video, so some of you might already know the gist of how I feel about this web novel being overhyped in the web novel platform. But over-promoted or not, this web novel has good enough merits to be rated as the current number 1 original in the power ranking. Congratulations JKS Manga for this achievement. We know it's not easy to create a great novel. At the time of this recording, the book has a 4.7 rating, 557 chapters, and averages 19 chapters a week. The story takes place in a world where the human race is at war with an alien race called the Dalki. Modern weapons have no effect on this race. It's a one-sided war. But then, humans with special abilities that have stayed hidden in the background of human history suddenly appear to assist humanity. Some of these people with abilities choose to share their knowledge with the rest of the world to help them with their battle against the vicious Dalki. Our protagonist, Quinn, has lost his parents in the war, which leads to the government taking care of him for the majority of his life. His only inheritance is an old book that can't be opened. Because of the ongoing war, the government requires teenagers to enroll in military training at 16 to fill their ranks. One day, before being admitted to military training, an accident occurs and he's able to open the book, doing so granting Quinn a system that changed his destiny. The system Quinn is given is similar to those who have experience reading web novels with a familiar leveling up concept. It includes stats, missions, and AI, a game leveling system. This isn't anything new, but that isn't what draws you in. It's the storytelling and the character development. The author JKS Manga did a great job writing this story and building a character I could get behind. One of the reasons we read web novels is to imagine the character as ourselves and imagine what we would do if we were in that situation. I loathe when authors create a character that I can't relate to because of the decisions they make. I hate when I have to force myself to envision myself making stupid decisions that make no sense in their path to getting stronger. Like, stop being a wimp and crave power and progress, whatever the cost. That might have sounded kinda dark, but the protagonist himself is generally a good guy. But he doesn't wimp out on opportunities that make him stronger. There are sometimes I feel like, especially in the beginning, that the MC is brain dead. For example, him not accepting the system or what he's become because of it. In the beginning, it was very annoying to read how his brain works. But it got a lot better, in my opinion. The pace of the story is just right. It definitely doesn't feel like some web novels where you read 20 chapters and no progress has been done with the character in his development. You'll find the character making strides to his development at a good pace that doesn't have him becoming too strong over a short amount of time. I should make you guys aware though, the story does contain the typical tropes and plot armor, but not absurdly done as other web novels. For the characters surrounding the MC, even 500 chapters in, I feel like they're one-dimensional or shallow. But there's still some hints of depth in those characters, and the author just has to flesh out the characters for more of an interesting and realistic character personality. The military school portion of the story makes sense, which I can appreciate because they don't just forget that they're enrolled in school, they have classes and other school responsibilities. The background of the world has great potential. Not much is revealed yet, but there are portals to other worlds and different species and factions, which leaves much to be discovered and makes the setting more interesting as the story unfolds. In the recent chapters and arc, I feel where the story is going has great potential. To be honest, I felt that it fell off a bit and I slowly lost interest where the novel is headed, but the author quickly picked it back up by adding some aspects into the plot that sucks the readers back into the novel. Number 9 on my list is Monster Integration by Anwan. At the time of this recording, Monster Integration has 1377 chapters and a rating of 3.9 stars, 9 million views, holds the spot of number 11 in the power ranking, and averages 21 chapters a week on the web novel platform. Yep, that wasn't a mistake. 21 chapters a week. So you can count on an average of 3 chapters a day. If only all authors adopted this publishing time. The setting starts in a world where humans and monsters form a bond and can fight together. A world where both can develop skills and evolve together to become stronger. I know what you're thinking. This isn't like Pokemon. I don't want you guys to get the wrong idea about this. When a monster and a human form a bond, that human gains the abilities of the monster and gives each other bonuses to one another. The story revolves around our main character, Michael, who merges with a common silver sparrow that doesn't have much development potential. The story starts out extremely slow, especially in the first 150 chapters. After that, it really starts picking up and the world and character really start progressing. I know 150 chapters are a lot to read, but bear with it because it'll be worth it. Even though he's offered a monster with high potential due to his academic achievements, he chose one raised by his own family with less potential and weaker abilities, as he didn't want to join an organization. He starts to cultivate the supreme combat exercise, strengthening his own body to overcome the lacking potential of his bonded monster while enduring the pain that comes together with using this technique. His monster gets stronger as he levels up the supreme combat exercise, as they share a symbiotic relationship. He travels to the most dangerous city of the continent after graduation to quicken up his cultivation to achieve his goal, which is to participate in a tournament 5 years later. From that point on until the most recent chapters, he starts to regularly hunt monsters to increase his strength and accumulate wealth, with some twists happening while hunting those monsters. The bonded monster of the MC, while weak, turns out to possess the ability to identify natural treasures while adventuring, giving hope that those treasures could be used to power them up. There are a few points I'd like to critique with this novel. The grammar is kinda poor. I'm not a huge stickler for great grammar, but even I noticed. But that doesn't take away that it's a great novel. Even though there's a proofreader starting from chapter 40-ish, the quality of the story does not go up substantially. The storyline is nicely thought through, but the character growth in terms of power is lacking. When it seems that the MC grew substantially, all the other characters that he's currently interacting with seem to have grown even more, resulting in a seemingly weak MC that is depending on the protection of every other character. This creates a dynamic that the MC doesn't appear to become overly OP but still making leaps and bounds in development. One last thing that really annoys me in this novel is that I've never had this many issues with the multiple power leveling system that the author has in this novel. There are so many different power systems in this novel, it's kinda insane. Even harder to keep up with as a reader. In different parts of the story, they use a different power leveling system which stops the reader to have a clear picture of strength throughout the novel. Number 8 on the list is Chrysalis by the author Rhinaz. It currently has a rating of 4.8 stars, 24 million views, and 668 chapters. It averages 4 chapters a week. I really wish the author would pick up the pace when it comes to releasing chapters, but great work takes time, and I can appreciate that. I came upon this web novel because it's currently one of the top 5 in WebNovel's power ranking, but I was avoiding reading it because it wasn't the type of web novel I was looking for a while. I've already read and watched plenty of isekai type novels and anime. I finally made my way to reading it, and I definitely do not regret starting it. Typical isekai main character Anthony dies and is reborn as an ant in a game-like world called Pangera. The reason him being reborn as an ant may have something to do with how he died and what he did before he dies, but I don't want to spoil anything, so it's better you go read for yourself. Overall, the story and plot is really good. For once, an isekai character doesn't become overly OP in a short amount of time. The author takes his time in developing the story and the main character. Other stories almost always show their world MCs grow quickly and become influential in their world. However, I find that this is short-sighted as it hampers world building and longevity as possible enemies quickly become scarce. We as readers never get the time to show empathy to him being the little guy. The story doesn't have that problem, as the MC isn't the strongest and doesn't seem likely to become the strongest anytime soon, allowing for plenty of interesting battles and controversy to come against our main character. One thing I really like about this novel that really made it stand out to me is that the main character is not reborn into a human, but instead an ant monster. Also, the main character has no aspiration to evolve and develop to gain back a humanoid form. Anthony takes full pride in what he's become in this world. Also, you can see how the main character's perception of his reality is being warped because of him being an ant, which the MC copes with it using humor throughout the story. His jokes are filling in the cracks of his sanity. As the story goes along, it's very entertaining to see how Anthony develops and the choices he chooses to become a strong monster ant. His system is similar to a game-like leveling up system, and he has the ability to choose how he evolves, what species he evolves to, and what features he has. Sometimes as the reader, I feel like he's making the wrong decision choosing one ability over another, but what can I do? But I think the author is intentionally doing this to portray that the MC is genuine and a normal individual that was reborn. The author develops the story in a way that the MC learns from his mistakes, which shows well thought out character development. Also, the author does a great job in adding comedy throughout the story that makes the reader chuckle out loud. Which is saying something because usually when the author tries to be funny in the story, it often feels forced and overall not actually funny. The novel is great to binge read. It truly sucks you in the story and is highly addictive. The world that the author is building is pretty good and full of potential. The author has built a nice foundation of the world and it creates an easy expansion at any time, which hopefully creates a longer story and an even better novel. I would recommend giving this at least 50 chapters to decide if you want to stick with it or not. This novel is probably for readers who enjoy isekais, good plot, weak to strong character development, and don't mind the system being used as a plot device. Number 7 on my list is The Oracle Paths by Slice. This book is Slice's first original work, but he's doing a great job at his first novel. Hats off to Slice. It currently has 364 chapters and the author averages about 7 chapters a week, which isn't bad at all. Its rating is 4.8 out of 5 stars and has 4 million views. This book is about Jake Wildereth. I think he's in his early to mid-20s. He's a highly unmotivated and unambitious individual. This takes place in the future, where technology is advanced, but because of disasters that happen at the beginning of the book, Earth is on a downward trend to chaos. Suddenly one day, a mysterious silver spaceship appears from nowhere, delivering to each Earthling a bracelet containing an AI introducing itself as the Oracle, changing human life forever. The Oracle device has 3 main functions. Guidance, which coaches the user by providing rewards, drawbacks, and risks associated with a certain task. Second, able to give predictions and steps to achieve an outcome. And lastly, Shadow Guide. Shadow Guide displays a self-double showing what you have to do to achieve something. This may sound like a total hack to have in life, but remember, since everybody has the same thing, it can only be used as a tool. They still have to make their own decisions and decide on what path they want to take. Jake does his best to try and survive in this new world, where Earth is opened up to a whole new universe of potential threats and enemies, but also opens up growth as a species. With great growth comes a great risk that humankind has to take to survive. You'll see Jake fight to survive, achieve some gains and some loss in his development. Jake's no hero, but he's not a bad guy either. He isn't a naive hero like we see in a lot of other web novels, which is quite refreshing. He does his best to develop and change himself so he can become as adaptable as possible to survive. He even changes his species, which I think is pretty cool. The plot is very solid and realistic, well, as much as it can be because it falls into the sci-fi genre. The author tries his best to have no major plot holes, which every reader can appreciate. When the apocalypse happens, there's a lot of character development that happens to Jake, which is necessary. People change when their survival is jeopardized, but it can't be abrupt and has to have something to set it in motion and a period of change. When you read this novel, you'll feel connected to not only the characters but the entire world itself. The author truly paints a picture in your head that helps you visualize the story as it goes on. This unique novel is a construction of science fiction, wuxia/shansha, and system story types. The unique construction of these ideas may seem like an unlikely one, but a very well put together piece nonetheless. I know some of you guys might turn away because there is a system because it promotes lazy writing and opens up massive plot holes. The author does his best to keep it to a minimum, and the system is not used to often move the plot along, but uses other plot devices. Pro tip, give it up until chapter 55 to decide if this book is for you or not. You may think 55 chapters is too much to find out if you like it or not, but you really need to bear with it. Because the author builds up the world so well, it'll be worth it. Number 6 on my list is a web novel called World Domination System by Killer Hemboy. World Domination System ended with 1167 chapters, and the novel finished up near the end of 2020. It was so sad to see this gem end. The only good news is that the author has a sequel he's currently working on called Rise of the God King. Go check it out if you like World Domination System. World Domination System has the following tags: System, Reincarnation, Cultivation, Adventure, and Action. Tags display what type of story elements the novel has, so if you're interested in any of these tags, I highly recommend you go give this web novel a try. The web novel starts out with a college student who is an orphan, who is struggling for cash. He chose to take part in an experiment that was advertised as safe and a good way to make some money. As soon as he was strapped to a chair and had electrodes placed on his head, he fell asleep but woke up to a robotic voice in his head. The voice stated, "World Domination System booting up. Main goal, dominate and conquer the world." Daniil's adventure starts with a new life in an unknown world. This web novel, in which the main character strives for world domination, is a very fun read. The author has a creative take on cultivation and magic systems, which entices the readers to read more and more. The main character's growth is slow and progresses nicely, with no sudden boost in power because of the plot. One thing I gotta say about this novel, where other novels don't do as well, is at the power leveling system. It's not confusing to the reader to understand what's going on and who's more powerful compared to another character. Also, the way he explains the leveling system throughout the story, you can tell it was very thought out. Some authors start to add confusing power levels as the story goes along, or even multiple power leveling systems, which creates chaos in the story and in the reader's mind. The world is also very well designed, with complex political situations and great complex battles. The story is consistent and makes sense. The constant foreshadowing used makes a reader more absorbed in the story. Overall, the book has an overwhelming sense of uniqueness, which is great to have in the sea of web novels out there. If anything I mentioned piqued your interest, go give it a read. Next up, holding the spot of number 5 is Supreme Magus by Legion 20. At the time of this recording, it currently has 1,013 chapters, 34 million views, a 4.8 star rating, averages 15 new chapters a week, and currently holds the number 4 spot on the power ranking. The main character, Derek McCoy, was a man who spent his entire life facing adversity and injustice, which includes being abused as a child and having to be a witness to Derek's little brother also being abused and his inability to protect him. After being forced to settle with surviving rather than living, he had finally found his place in the world, until everything was taken from him. After losing his life to avenge his murdered brother, he reincarnates into an alien soldier's body somewhere else in the universe, and again dies soon after. So it seems each time he loses his life, he's able to reincarnate to some other body anywhere in the universe. He finds himself in a world worth living in, a world filled with magic and monsters. This is his journey, from grieving brother to the alien soldier. From infant to Supreme Magus. Supreme Magus is one of the best mage development fantasy stories that I encountered along my web novel reading journey. Supreme Magus has 3 chapters of prologue, which talks about Derek's life before being reincarnated and what leads up to him being reincarnated. In most stories, the author doesn't take their time to get the audience introduced to the main character and relate with the character and build strong connections or empathy with the character. In the beginning, it starts out quite sad and makes the reader really empathize with Derek's life. The author Legion 20 did a great job giving more context on who Derek is and not just diving into reincarnation in the first chapter or first 3 paragraphs of the story. When authors do that, the audience knows that the author is rushing the story and that the author doesn't have a well thought out storyline, which doesn't let the reader get to know the character and be invested in the story. Also, another thing, the author's grammar is pretty good. Comparing it to other web novels out there, I'm not sure if he has an editor, but so far there have been very rare cases of grammatical errors, which definitely makes for an easier read. Other stories with bad grammar usually take the reader out and break immersion. Usually the reader will need to run back to try and understand what they just read so they can get what the author was trying to convey in their writing. Also, the author does a great job of world building in all of his chapters. It doesn't contain an ounce of filler chapters. Each chapter has a purpose to get you further invested in the main character's story. There are many arcs in the story, but none of them feel rushed or have the main character being OP or one-shot kill type of fights in storyline. Each arc connects with each other, and you can tell they're carefully thought out because of how they correlate to his development as a character and his journey to take care of everything that's important to him, and also become a Supreme Magus as the title states. His multiple life stories have been very depressing, so we as the audience really hope that the main character finds some happiness. The main character's personality is one that the readers can relate to and understand why he acts like he does. Numerous other characters in other web novels and Manhua lack actual character development and just end up being a naive person being OP and all about justice, which we know actual personalities aren't that simple. The main character's decisions and temperament align with his origin, which is a huge deal so that we as an audience can see why he does things and relate to his thinking and actions. The author has created a mana and spell system that's very complex and detailed, and the characters are varied, well thought out, and lovable. Not only that, the story is consistent and makes sense. The foreshadowing is used correctly and makes the reader look forward to more chapters and the future of the story. With this novel reaching over 1,000 chapters, you really get to see an impressive amount of characters show steady, fluid development in their personality, which increases relatability between the reader and the characters. The world is also very well designed, with complex political situations and great complex battles. Overall, the book has an overwhelming sense of self. This isn't a story that follows every other trope or timeline, but one that follows its own path. Number 4 on my list is The Mech Touch by Xlore. This book is one of the best original novels from the author I've ever read. It currently has over 2,000 chapters at the time of this recording and over 1,700 plus reviews. It has no signs of slowing down anytime soon, and the story just keeps going and going. The story so far is 2,262 chapters in, and it still just feels like the main character is just starting his adventure, which is great. I definitely have very high expectations on where this series is gonna go in the long run. This book is under the sci-fi and adventure category and currently has over 20 million views on WebNovel. It has a rating of 4.6 out of 5, averages 22 new chapters a week, and holds the spot of number 3 in the power ranking. I'll give you a quick summary of the Mech Touch, at least as much as I can without spoiling anything for you guys, because I really want you guys to go ahead and read it, as soon as you get a chance. The story takes place in a distant future, where humanity has made its way through space, conquering half the galaxy, taking planets and star sectors over from alien races. Through humanity's technological advancements, they're able to establish control over half the galaxy. I like to think Elon Musk and his company SpaceX helped humanity make that leap into the great beyond of space travel. Anyways, the story takes place hundreds of years after humanity's conquest, and it's at an age where human civilization revolves around mechs after the conquest of the galaxies. The story starts out with our main character, Vess Larkinson. Vess had lacked the aptitude to interface with a mech, so he's decided to become a mech engineer, which is basically an engineer who designs and builds mechs for a living. Instead of expressing his love for mechs by piloting one himself since he can't pilot one, he expresses it by building them instead. After Vess graduates from college, he returns to a newfound mech workshop that his father built with a mountain of debt under their name. But Vess's father suddenly goes missing, leaving him with the bank asking for their money. As Vess gets desperate for money, he stumbles on something that'll bring hope to his despair. A legacy his father left him which changes his fate forever. The legacy is a system if you haven't guessed already, but it's not your usual plot device used in other novels where the main character becomes OP and constantly used as the only way the main character advances. There are arcs in the story where the system isn't even used. The author X-Lord doesn't use the system as a crutch to move the plot along, nor does the main character get heavily dependent on the system, which will impede his character development later throughout the story. As I said before, this book is over 2,000 chapters long, and it took me about a month of binge reading. I stayed up way too late binge reading this novel, but it was worth it. I can't tell you how many times I've almost spent an all-nighter staying and reading this book. This book is addicting, I swear. Once you start, you can't look away. So make sure before you start, you get everything squared away in your life before you start reading. This book will consume you. It's that good. Also, I'd like to give you a pro tip when reading this book. At around chapter 500 to 750, you're gonna start to feel that the book is dragging on. But once you get through that, the rest of the chapters will be worth it. The story moves along pretty well and has a lot of plot that keeps the story moving at a good pace. Not too fast, not too slow. The fact that it keeps a moderate pace in the plot and story moving along is one of this web novel's many strengths. I personally hope that the story never ends, and I feel like it's actually possible with all the possible ways the story can go. This web novel should be like the anime One Piece and just never end. Just between chapters 500 to 750, I felt the author X-Lord dragged what was going on a little too long, but that's okay. That was the only time I ever felt the story drag, and I think that X-Lord learned his lesson. The world building is top tier. The author slowly gets you sucked into the new world around the story without overwhelming the reader with info that you can't keep track of. Now that I look back at it, I shouldn't have called it world building. Given the context, it should have been called galaxy building. Yeah, that sounds more accurate. Also, the amount of detail the author puts into his story is borderline perfect. It may be the fact that I'm a nerd and an engineer that I appreciate details, but when the author includes a lot of detail in his work, I get more and more infatuated with the novel. If you ever watched this video, X-Lore, thanks for that. I appreciate it. You can tell the author did a lot of research and forethought writing this story. Character development is really good, and the main character actually grows from his life and the decisions he makes. Vess is definitely a multi-dimensional character, and one you would like. But personally, I wish he wasn't so stubborn sometimes, but that's just me. Also, it's not just the main character who has distinct characteristics. Side characters have distinct characteristics and dialogue that make you appreciate the author putting real effort in creating depth in each side character we come across in the story. This book deserves to be in its own tier. This web novel doesn't have as many cliches as the vast majority of web novels out there. It has an original idea and plot that pushes the story forward to newer and higher heights. If you want to give this book a trial read, I recommend reading until chapter 75 to 120. If you're not hooked by then this novel isn't for you. We're finally at our top 3 web novels of 2020. If you've made it this far, I want to tell you guys thank you for watching this video and showing your support. If you haven't subscribed, go subscribe because if you've made it this far, I know you're a true fan of web novels and will enjoy the future content I plan on making. Also, don't forget to leave a like. Alright then, next, our number 3 best novel of 2020 is I Am the God of Games by Green Pepper Bat Dunbury. It currently has a 4.7 star rating and has 2 million views. It has 404 chapters at the time of this recording and it looks like the author is taking a break. He stopped updating chapters 4 months ago, and hopefully he continues this novel because it's a very unique gem that needs to be finished. So if you read it and enjoy it, please go support the author's novel, to motivate the author to continue working on this novel. The story starts off with a modern human being transmigrated. Usually, characters are transmigrated to a human or beast or even demon. This is the first novel I've come across that has someone transmigrate into a god. It's a greatly unique concept in the web novel world. We've had VR MMOs, game worlds, NPCs in a game world with a player, but this is the first main character that's a god that creates a player and a game leveling system. Hats off to the author for giving us a genuinely creative concept. As the title states, he has become the god of games. The story starts off with him being a third-rate dying god. With almost zero believers, his existence was highly unstable. Our main character must start gaining believers and followers for him to become a stronger influence in the world. There are many gods in this world, and gaining followers, so it won't be easy, as there are much more powerful gods in existence in this world that he must compete with to gain any believers and power. The MC has to gather divine power, which he does by granting people systems like in video games, and when they kill monsters, people, or anything really, the god of games gets 70% of the power of the kill because the killed get essentially sacrificed to him. The player gets 30% in the form of XP, giving the player skills, different classes, and game updates. The main character basically has the potential to turn his world into a game system world, which is mind-blowing to think about. I wonder if he'll become a god that creates the worlds that other web novel characters keep getting transmigrated to. It's very fun to think about. This is a great story of a divine existence gaining power and also a story of his believers. The story doesn't just focus on the god of games, but it also follows the story of his followers that continue to grow in faith to their god. At first, I thought the novel should focus more on the MC than the believers or players, but the author's able to alternate focuses really well. This creates a very dynamic and fun storytelling style that keeps you further intrigued in the story and not just the main character of the story. The world building could use some work, but it's pretty decent so far. The story so far doesn't extend to the whole world, but that makes sense when the story is generally pretty young and the god of games doesn't have a lot of power to have influence throughout the whole world. It definitely has a lot of potential for world building though, so not a total turnoff. I'd recommend you give this story till chapter 40 to decide if this is for you. Our second best web novel of 2020 goes to Birth of the Demonic Sword by Eve of Chaos. At the time of this recording, it has over 1,233 chapters, 21 million views, a rating of 4.7 stars, currently holds the spot of number 7 of the power rating, and an average of 21 new chapters per week. This web novel genre falls into Eastern fantasy. Birth of the Demonic Sword has the tags magic, reincarnation, cultivation, monsters, world travel, adventure, magical beast, ruthless MC, cold protagonist, and evil MC. As you can probably tell by the tags already, this main character isn't a quote-unquote good person. So if you don't like your main characters being overwhelmingly ruthless, this web novel isn't for you. This main character is one of the most vicious MCs I've come across in my journey of reading web novels. This is the story of a concubine son of a wealthy family. The MC from Earth's consciousness was transferred to the baby's mind of the new world. The main character had no purpose in his previous life. His previous life resulted in him having no purpose and control. He makes power his reason to keep on living. Noah Balvin will have to fight against his social status and the many difficulties of the new world. His purpose is to obtain the power to stand free in the sky above anyone and everyone. The main character is locked in on that mindset. Noah Balvin is ruthless, and he doesn't care what's moral and what isn't. He is quite straightforward, realistic, and honest with himself. I wouldn't say he's a villain, but I would definitely not call him a good guy either. It's more like he does what needs to be done to survive while getting stronger. The author did a great job creating characters that are multi-dimensional and a big world where the audience learns about the world with the main character without being overwhelmed with too much information. Also, the author uniquely mixes magic and martial arts to display how the main character gains power and skills throughout the story. Last but definitely not least is the novel I've been getting countless recommendations in the comments section ever since the beginning of me starting this channel. The web novel is called The Legendary Mechanic by Shi Peja. At the time of this recording, this novel has 1,160 chapters, a rating of 4.5, a ranking of number 15 in the power ranking with 34 million views and averages 11 chapters per week. I can't be mad at the average updates, it's not too bad. I want to start by saying this novel is the cream of the crop for web novels. Before I go into too much detail, I'll give you a brief summary and the tropes to expect in this web novel. The main character transmigrates into a role-playing video game, where the main character knows what will happen in the future because he remembers major events happening in each version of the game. The twist is, the main character transmigrates as an NPC that can also level up and learn skills like a player. With this future knowledge, he's able to take advantage of the world, players, and NPCs because of what he knows to become a truly formidable character. You may even notice that the main character starts developing somewhat of a god complex, but what can we expect in a person who knows the future in a game that he's played and loved? The character design indicates the author took care and attention in crafting the main character. The character is definitely multidimensional, and there are indications that other characters are the same. Except for the player characters in the story, they're so far in the story kind of irrelevant because of their low strength. But I'm expecting that once they level up some more, they'll hold more importance to the story. The game he's transmigrated to doesn't just encompass a world, but multiple galaxies. This means the world building this novel has is simply astronomically great and filled with endless potential to be even greater. By far, the strongest point of Legendary Mechanic is with its world building. It has a lot of interesting factions and abilities that complement the plot, and most of the events and factions seem to be thought through ahead of time by the author, instead of making stuff up as we go along. There is some humor in there too. It managed to make me chuckle a couple of times, which is huge because it's a big feat for an author to be able to articulate humor in a web novel and have me as a reader actually laugh. This novel is simply amazing. The web novel is an attention grabber, with all its twists and turns. The game world is a world that I know we would love to live and play. I don't even have a chapter amount reading recommendation for you guys, because I know if you start reading this novel, you'll fall in love with it. You can thank me later. That's all we got for this video. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with my list of the best web novels of 2020, or if you have any suggestions of web novels to talk about for the next video. Also, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like to let me know that you enjoyed this video and would like me to make more videos like this. Welcome to the 4th ever after show of Weeb Psycho TV. This is part of the video where we'll have a little fun down in the comments. For today's thing, what I want you guys to do is fill the comment section with New Year, New Web Novel. So if you enjoyed the video or want to support my channel, simply comment New Year, New Web Novel. And I'll definitely heart those comments because I appreciate everybody who stays till the end of my videos. Alright, see ya. Till next time.